You have one of the widest portfolios, and I won't spend too much time on the railways. Just one quick final question, and this is a broader question. Years back ago, you used to see the railway minister oblige political constituencies, talk about new lines. I also noticed one of the features was 1,000 rupee allocations in the railway budget in the recent past. I wonder why that happens. But the broader question is today, after so many years of the Modi government, what is the shape of the railways and what is the future looking like? Because we used to always see headlines that the railways is close to bankruptcy, it is running on fumes. How has that changed?
Significantly. That has changed significantly, and the pace of change is increasing every day. There's always a inertia when you start something big. There will always be inertia, but beyond a tipping point, things start moving in a very different way. The kind of reforms which have happened in the last 5-6 years, phenomenal amount of cutting those controlled mindset wala regulations, phenomenal change has happened. The customers, the people who are associated, whether they are passengers or people who load their cargo, that has totally changed. Their experience has changed. A few years back, thinking of loading 3 million ton every day used to be something, oh, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. Today we are consistently achieving 4.2-4.3 million ton loading every day, and well on target to load 5 million ton every day. So railways future is absolutely good. It's going to be robust, and lot more technology absorption is happening. People are coming out with new ideas. We are very soon going to launch a startup challenge for some of the most important challenges that railways faces, and we would like the bright minds to come up with solutions for that.
What are those challenges, if you could quickly elaborate?
Okay, so very important point, like what is the condition of the track? Unlike a road surface, when you move on the railway, there are both lateral as well as vertical oscillations, vibrations, right? So how do you monitor the condition of the track? Because thousands of trains are running every day. Is there a way by which you can real-time monitor the condition of the tracks, right? Second, whenever there is a fog, if there is any solid element coming onto the track, it's a risk. How do you detect that, right? There are many such items, about 15 odd problems statements that we have listed. 5 or 6 we will be issuing the challenge very soon. It would be good reward and also continuous business for those startups.
I don't want to get you to comment about what has happened, the violence that happened around the recruitment, but for the record here for our audience, for a country that has instant KYC, we are Aadhaar linked, there is so much digitization, we have some of the toughest and well-run exams. Why does this happen? And there is, of course, job unrest. The youth is unemployed, and that perhaps manifested in the unfortunate violence. What would you say to that?
See, first thing is, railway job is a highly coveted job. This is something which people really want to have. So the numbers are huge. For a vacancy of 35,000 odd vacancies, the applications were in the range of 1.25 crore. Unlike a simple enrollment or any other activity, or many people put it on the social media that if we can do an election for so many crore people, why not 1 point? See, exam is a different process. Exam, the fairness of the exam is very, very important. And I would like to highlight the entire exam throughout the COVID period also when we did it. Not a single complaint about any paper leak, any manipulation. Then Railways has a very unique way that the answer sheet is then disclosed to the candidates so that they can place their objections. So those objections were received, those objections were resolved, and then came the final listing. The point of concern was not about the exam or the time frame. The point of concern was how many people are allowed to move from the first stage to the second stage. The key point of students' concern was that you have to allow unique number of people. We said 20 times, 20x is the number that we had notified. Yes. So this 20x has to be unique. So it was a concern which we have taken very sensitively. हमारी संवेदनशील सरकार है. very sensitively we have taken. We have entered into a very wide-ranging dialogue. We have received more than 2 lakh representations so far in the last 10 days. And in parallel, we are processing those representations. Our teams have gone all over the country to meet and hear out these students. We are a government of the students. We are a government of the people at the bottom.
For those students who would probably be watching this, do you think you could say safely right now that this will not be repeated ever in the future?
Exam process is always evolving. I'm sure, basis this experience, the next time exams will be far systematic, far better organized, I would like to say.
Thank you for that assurance. Let's move on to your other charges, and I'll start with communications. Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited, one of the largest companies at one time, you couldn't do without that phone. This budget has a very significant budgetary allocation, well over 42,000 crore, and two aspects to this. At a time when the government has finally I don't want to use the word gotten rid of Air India, but actually given it a fresh lease of life. Is this money enough to provide Bharat Sanchar a fresh lease of life, or are you just pumping in good money in a sector and just retaining BSNL for some 70s command economy rationale?
Okay, so BSNL plays a very important strategic role in our economy. Definitely it's not a control mindset, 70s as you said. Definitely it's not that. When you look at the strategic interests of the country, telecom is one sector in which you would always like to have presence of the government, first. Second, would the private sector reach out to the people who are unconnected, people living in the far-flung areas? We are a government of Antyodaya philosophy. Right from our Janasangh days, we have always believed in serving the poorest of the poor, the last person in the society. Would the private sector like to go there? No. That's why we need...
If I may interrupt, sir, are you therefore saying that with 25 years of private sector companies, with billions and hundreds of billions spent, the private sector is not reaching rural India? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take the experience, take the large swathes of area in the entire northeast. Look at the border areas, look at the areas throughout Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, parts of Andhra Pradesh, many of these forested areas. Barely any presence of the private sector. It's only BSNL which is providing this service.
But sir, then why... Yeah, please.
So, BSNL was a profitable company. During the first few years of UPA
But as a monopoly, sir.
No, by that time already large number of players had come. But during the first, and you are a telecom expert, last time you said that you used to cover telecom in a significant way. So during the first few years of UPA, large amount of reserves were taken out of BSNL and utilized for some other purposes. It came into a very difficult situation. 2019, the first set of support for BSNL was given, and today I'm happy to share with you and viewers, BSNL has made operating profit after many years. Now is the time when the company is stabilizing to take it to a new level. So definitely one public sector telecom company will stay. We will support it to the hilt.
One quick point. Are you happy with the utilization of the Universal Service Obligation Fund? This is a fund for those of all the viewers who may not know this, which you actually pay for. It's a very sizable fund, Mr. Vaishnav, and I have seen in the past that utilization doesn't happen because even Bharat Sanchar's plan, for example, to do roll out a network in the left-wing extremism areas, it's a project for many years. Your own government gave it some life again in 2014-15, but it's perhaps not achieved what you had in mind.
So the result are, I would say, it's still a story in progress. The infrastructure is now laid out. A large number of close to 160,000 kilometers of fiber has already been laid out, right? Our focus now is to make sure that reaches the house. It has reached the Gram Panchayat. It has reached the bigger villages. Now the focus is to take it to the household. That's the next step that we are working on it. Could we do it better? Yes, definitely there is always a scope of improvement, but have we achieved something which the country should be proud of. Yes, we have achieved something which the country should be proud of.
I think what we should also be proud of and acknowledge on the stage is the brave decision policy making, and I will repeat what I had asked you in an interview, that after the new telecom policy of 1999 and the reforms of 2003, it is you as the minister and your government which has actually provided a new lease of life to this sector by some of the recent reforms. Do you think, and some months have passed since then, that the worst is behind for India's mobile phone operators, the private sector companies which were struggling with very high debt, and they were also seeing falling ARPUs?
Absolutely, yes. The industry tells us that yes, the worst is behind us. They are reorganizing themselves into a new way of doing business. They are realigning their business plans. Some small little things, for example, the permission to set up a new tower. What used to take months today, and the industry participants are telling me, now it takes few hours, sometimes few minutes. So that is the level of change which has happened because of these September reforms. And I thank Honorable Prime Minister for his very visionary step, very bold step in taking forward those reforms. We are already working on the next set of reforms, where many more old regulations which have lost their relevance in today's world will also be cleaned from the slate.
Since you talk about old regulations, just as a small aside, I believe in the 1857 Telegraph Act, there is still a clause which bars you from owning multiple telephone connections. I don't know if that will also go, Mr. Vaishnav. But let's talk about the future, since you spoke about mobility. The 5th generation mobile broadband spectrum auctions, you've already spoken about that happening this year. The biggest concern has been, and this is impacting in some ways consumers as well, that the government has in the past used auctions as a revenue exercise. Let's mop up money from here, there, wherever, and use spectrum. And spectrum, by becoming very expensive, ultimately gets passed on to the consumer. There is no free lunch. It's impacted BSNL and MTNL also. You had to bail them out in that regard as well. How will 5G be priced? I know you cannot sort of announce it here at this stage. There is a proper process involved, but what's your own thinking?
Listen, let's take two numbers first. Globally, the average revenue per ARPU is what we call, is close to 2,600, 2,700 in most of the other geographies. We are close to 300 rupees as the average cost for a common consumer. So it's not that our prices are very high compared to the global standards. For sure, we are significantly lower than the global cost standards, 1. 2, there is a realization throughout the world that telecom today, and especially spectrum as a key enabler of telecom, has an element of public good. Third, our process of discovering the price is a very transparent process. TRAI is right now going through the final leg of its consultations. It would be unfair for me to comment on the pricing, but I hope and I'm confident that the industry will be prepared for the 5G rollout. But beyond this 5G rollout, I wanted to highlight another point. Yep. See, Prime Minister gave us a target. Our entire technology stack for 5G has to be developed in India in the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat, has to be developed in India. And I'm very happy to share with all the viewers, after the great success of 4G core and 4G radio network, building upon that success, 5G core, 5G radio network, 5G telecom equipments and 5G handset. The success is phenomenal. By the end of this year, or rather even somewhere in the middle of this year, we would have Indian product, entire technology stack, which we prove in the country and take it to the world and challenge some of the biggest technology providers in telecom.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key things that you must also realize, and by now, is that Mr. Vaishnav is, in fact, I would call him one of the 3 major Atmanirbhar Bharat ministers in the government. with railways, which is a fantastic Atmanirbhar organization. Communications, you heard about 5G. We know what has happened in handsets. And now I'm turning to electronics, which is the semiconductor plan. I'll straight up ask you, is Intel coming to India or not, sir? Because, you know, this is a question that's asked always. You have to give us a definitive answer today.
So, when the scheme, the semiconductor policy was launched last December, 15 December is when the cabinet approved it. Within 15 days, we launched all the schemes, we set the portal up and running. 1st January onwards, we started receiving the applications. I'm very happy to share with you that the response has been phenomenal. Throughout the world, the big players in semiconductor industry have noticed one very major thing which is different compared to the rest of the world. We have given a clear assurance and a roadmap for 20 years, which is very different from, I'm willing to put in so many billions of dollars, please come to my country kind of approach first. Second, we have looked at the entire picture, not just silicon fab, but display fab, compound semiconductors, design ecosystem. Above all, which the entire industry is appreciating, is that we have committed to prepare 85,000 semiconductor engineers, and we have already shortlisted the institutions in which they will work. They will be trained. We are working with AICTE right now to prepare to finalize the course curriculum. It's something which is going to last, which will strengthen our country's economy for many years. That's the vision of Prime Minister. When he called me and said that, Ashwini ji, सोचो 20 साल का सोचना है, हमें 4-5 साल के हिसाब से सोचना ही नहीं है, because this is an industry where if you lay the foundation today, you will start getting the results in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. And if the results are good, foundation is strong, the results will continue to give us buoyancy for next many decades. So that's the thought process. I wouldn't take name of any company. Yes, there is keen interest from almost all the major participants.
And I'm sure we'll hear something more about that. For the viewer, how would you explain wafers, chips and fabs very simply? These are obviously not potato chips, but they're very important. By one reckoning, $10 billion worth of chips are imported annually as part of the overall electronics import. Would you care to?
I wish I had my wafer with me right now. So, minus the wafer. Okay, so wafer is like a CD. You look at a CD, but just imagine in your mind a CD that is no longer in existence these days. That's the wafer, right? On the wafer, very small chips are etched. They are printed on it. Then each one of them is picked out in a very complex photolithographic process and then put it inside a chip. Chip is that black thing that you see. Then its legs and the body are prepared. That is put on the circuit. That circuit then finally goes into the all the devices, the microphone that you're holding in your hand, the mobile phone, this camera, all this equipment, that circuit goes. So that's the way it works out.
And it's the real chip, it's not the chip that some people thought would be inside a currency note. Before I move on, I just want to ask you one more point, because that is also, people may not realize, a part of your charge. Is there a postal stamp that you will be issuing for the great Lata Mangeshkar?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you have announced it at the India Today Forum. Let's move on in the time that we have left now towards information technology, and I'm skipping a few questions that I had in mind. Mr. Vaishnav, two impressions, and I say impressions deliberately because one, that India is fighting with all social media companies, that suddenly this plan for Atmanirbharta also has somehow transformed into a plan against all these social media companies. And I won't take names, you're fighting with everyone and making life difficult for them, not letting them do business in India, perhaps in the hope of homegrown giants. Would that perception be correct at all?
I frankly don't think that perception is correct at all. I think the spirit of our government is to bring that balance between freedom of expression on the one hand, protecting our society on the other hand, right? That balance has to be brought, and that's what societies all over the world are basically evolving into that kind of discussion. End of the day, what matters is whether as a user of social media, I, my children, my family members, my society, my city, my village, my community, are they safe? Because in the yesteryears, in your magazine, India Today, an editor would always take out the stuff which is not good for the society, which is not publishable. In today's world in social media, there is no such control. There is no such editor. So self-regulation is the first step, which is very important, and that's what the regulations of 2021 that were published, those regulations basically put the onus on the platforms that, please, Mr. Platforms, you start your self-regulation process so that if somebody is trying to put something which is not good for the society, you remove it yourselves. And if somebody has a complaint against you, then you create an institutional mechanism for redressing that grievance, right? That is what in a nutshell, that is 2021 guidelines. We have evolved over that. Today there is a consensus building up that the accountability has to increase. So that increasing the accountability, even the social media platforms are saying this, yes, we definitely would like to increase our accountability, because end of the day, we wouldn't like to be seen as multipliers of a problem. We would like to be seen as multipliers of ideas, as propagators of good thoughts, rather than trying to increase the negative value in the society.
Have the guidelines worked?
The guidelines have worked fairly well. Almost all large social media platforms, they've complied, actually all. They've all complied, and in fact, I've said it in the parliament itself, and I showed the compliance reports. Good thing is, we said that, okay, you don't have to report. You just publish your compliance documents on the websites, on your own platforms. And people have downloaded and seen that.
The flip side argument is that why should the government be sort of trying to police? These are my words.
Absolutely not. There is no question of policing. It's, again, I'm saying self-regulation. Self-regulation basically means if X social media platform is using somebody's content, something is getting uploaded, that platform itself should check.
But just to complete that point, but why regulate? If I am uploading personal pictures, if I am putting out everything, my birthday, anniversary, other celebrations, then why should I not be the one who is responsible for the data? Why do I need a government which is yet to come up with a privacy law, a foolproof major, global standard privacy law step in?
So the examples you gave are great examples. Birthday pictures, your own picture. I'm sure you use social media. There is a significant chunk of content which would be exactly opposite of what you are saying, what you mentioned, right? What is the impact of that content on the society? So question is, yes, I agree with you. The people who are uploading that data, they also have they have actually a bigger responsibility. But the media is today provided by the tech companies. For example, if I have some grievance against somebody, I go in a closed room within the four walls, I shout whatever I want to shout against whatever that grievance is. It's okay, fine, nobody is affected. But in social media, it's affecting the entire society because it's visible to everybody. It is getting amplified by technology. It's amplified by the reach of that. So that's the reason why self-regulation, accountability is important.
Mr. Vaishnav, even in some recent instances of violence, do you think the effort that the government has made has worked? Because a lot of misinformation was spread through these platforms without taking names. So the point I'm trying to ask is, are we doing enough, or is it a halfway house? Did you pull back after you got sort of a global backlash, or at least a backlash from these tech companies themselves? They always talk about the algorithm. There is no editor. So why not then just say that for in an India operation, you need a proper newsroom kind of structure. You need a editor who is responsible under a PRB Act or whatever, and hold them fully accountable. Why a halfway house?
See, whenever a new technology comes, it evolves. There's nothing like this is a piece of specs. This has got developed over so many centuries, and today it is available, you can buy it. Social media is something which is evolving, and society's response to this platform is evolving, not just in India, all over the world. This is such a fluid situation that we have to mold ourselves according to the situation every day. So that's where the world is moving, and we are also moving in that very same direction.
By when do you think we'll have the personal, the privacy law in place? There is an elaborate process, standing committee discussions. Can we expect that anytime soon? And it's not your charge, but can it go the crypto bill way? It came, it didn't come. Is that likely?
Listen, the parliament is in session. I am holding a responsible position. I wouldn't like to comment on it.
I will not push you on that. One final point, and despite knowing that Parliament is in session, but since you have already spoken about it, a lot of concerns have been expressed, and recent reports have tried to rake up that issue once again, the Pegasus deal. Now, the way I am asking this is that if there is national security, I would stand up first and say that it's not worth a discussion, especially in a public forum. But there is another aspect to this entire argument. For the record, please try and say whatever you would like to say on this matter right now, knowing fully well that Parliament is in session.
I would say that let's trust our judiciary.
Okay, that's a fairly cryptic comment. My final point about the day, and this is really a generic comment for all the conversations that we have had around digital India. I was personally disappointed that in this budget, unless there is fine print that we haven't seen, there wasn't anything that acknowledges the burden that study from home, work from home has put on those who are less privileged. Even bandwidth costs, access to a laptop, access to a good handset, that's not available. I have heard of handset schemes before elections, never happened. Can we see some course correction going forward?
So I think we need to look at it in a little bit more comprehensive way. Today, our handset industry has reached a level which was unthinkable 10 years back. 10 years back, would you ever guess that India would become the second largest mobile manufacturer in the world? 10 years back, could you even think that where would the world's largest mobile factory be? You would have thought China always. Today, world's largest mobile manufacturing is in India. So the ecosystem is developing, that's helping reduce the cost for us. Now we are deepening the entire electronics manufacturing. We are going down to the PCB, to the chips, to the components, to the other associated chemicals which are required. All these are definitely going to reduce the cost of handsets, reduce the cost of electronic devices for all our viewers. That is first. And second is reaching the internet, taking the internet down to that last village. In December itself, Prime Minister had approved 7,000 new sites in areas which were still uncovered. Then he has directed us to conduct thorough survey. Any areas which are still left out, we must make sure that bandwidth, internet, the mobile technology which is available to you and me should reach the last person in the society.
Absolutely, and I think that's the best way that we can ensure that the last person in the line gets the biggest amount of resources that is possible. Mr. Vaishnav, there's so much more to discuss, but I'm going to thank you at this stage for your time and for your participation and for the entire audience to listen so carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Abha, back to you.